All right, so what could take Bitcoin to 100K this year? That's what we're going to dive in today. My name is Paul Barron. This is TechPath. Welcome back to the show. Before we get started, I want you guys, the first thing you're going to do is I want you to hit the like button, subscribe to this video. We have a lot of new stuff coming up here on TechPath that I think you're going to love. We got some summer surprises coming up for you as well. They're going to be really fun, I think, for you guys to all participate in. Let's jump into it today on Bitcoin. Before we get started, let's jump over to CoinMarketCap. And just as a advisory, this is not investment advice. We always warn you guys, you want to do your own research. I want you guys to go out there, find multiple sources. And if you're new to crypto, I definitely want you to do a walk before you run, which I just did a poll on Twitter the other day, and I was a little surprised at this. We polled our audience to see how many people were utilizing leverage or low-cost interest loans to gamble on and invest in in crypto. And the numbers came back a little bit striking, and that was around 35% of people said they were. And that to me was a high number of people that are using leverage and also low-cost loans to basically invest in cryptocurrency. And I would make a recommendation to anyone out there: do not get yourself caught in leverage. If you are in a situation where you have to take a loan out to move into cryptocurrency, maybe it's not the right time for you. And I understand the FOMO and I understand all that, but just be cautious when you're dealing with any of these volatile assets. This also goes for some of the stocks that are out there. If you're playing the GameStop crowd, or maybe you're even looking at some of the things that's happening on Reddit, I think you have to just be much more cautious of that. So let's take a look at what's happening over on CoinMarketCap today. Bitcoin sitting in at 36.7, which is a nice number. It's had its nice little move. We've seen some moves up to almost 39 this week. And you can kind of see the into the block summary here. 72% holding on 72% making money at the current rate, 12% on large holders. That's been pretty much the same for the last couple of weeks. However, Bitcoin dominance has moved up a little bit, which is kind of interesting if you look at it. Dominance on Bitcoin now at 44.3%, which is actually risen. ETH has dropped from what was reported earlier around almost 20%, now down to 17.8. So that's interesting. And maybe it's because of what we're going to be talking about here today. Before we get going on all those, I want to also check over here on Trade the Chain on sentiment. You can kind of see where it's going. It's up a little bit because this was bearish earlier this week, now sitting in at neutral, bullish on long-term sentiment. Let's take a look, deep dive on Bitcoin and see what the 7-day looks like. Not bad, pretty decent. You can kind of see the moves, the ebb and flow of daily sentiment rolling with it and kind of holding up right here. However, sentiment is a little bit low a comparison to where the current price point is at 36.6. So that in itself is a little worrisome. I think people are concerned that we might be seeing a little bit of a dip here before the weekend, because it is Friday as we're filming this, whether you've seen this on the weekend or the next week. The point that we're going to be talking about today, and I want to dive into, is really looking at some of the stories that are driving where Bitcoin could be by the end of the year, especially. And there's a lot of key dominoes that are in the game right now. Let's get into the point, and that is Bitcoin Lightning Network on Twitter is only a matter of time. There he is. If you were in Miami this last week, you got a chance to see Dorsey on stage at Bitcoin Conference 21. And it was pretty interesting. He is really in on this. He is a bit of a Bitcoin maximalist, though, I will say. But the point is that Jack is basically saying it's only a matter of time before Bitcoin Lightning Network is integrated into Twitter or Blue Sky. Now, Blue Sky is their project that they started a couple years back, 2019. And it's basically a little different style of project. But eventually, remember, Dorsey is also the CEO at a company called Square, who is very active in cryptocurrency and potentially could be one of the leaders in crypto payment. And I think the Twitter platform and the fact that crypto Twitter is a thing, there could be some opportunities, I think, here for Twitter to really kind of move into this next era of where implementing any kind of cryptocurrency into the Twitter sphere and/or Blue Sky will be a huge win for Twitter. Let's also jump over to what the SEC and the CFTC urge U.S. investors to consider Bitcoin futures as risks. So this is a big deal, I think, in the sense that Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, have basically said, listen, watch where you tread if you're getting into Bitcoin futures. Weigh it carefully and the potential risk. This is, again, some of the FUD that comes out of the governmental agencies that are out there. And I feel like this is just that. It is creating a little bit more of that FUD. Elizabeth Warren, of course, this week really went after Bitcoin. I think a lot of this is being shaken loose because of the recent activity with El Salvador and what they've done in terms of legalizing Bitcoin as a tender in the country of El Salvador, even though it's a very small country, I think around 6 to 7 million people. The point is that they have set and it's weird, El Salvador has set the financial global stage on potentially countries taking a very hard look at Bitcoin as a potential base for some sort of monetary system. That in itself, I think, is going to be one to watch very carefully. The other thing that I'm watching is the big investment boys, and that is Blackrock. Blackrock says they're still studying Bitcoin and wary of market volatility. Not that they haven't been wary of market volatility before, but Larry Fink, this one is where I think it gets a little bit weird. Larry Fink, who is the CEO of Blackrock, talked about Bitcoin's volatility. CEO previously shown interest in the cryptocurrency, and it's still too early for the world's largest asset manager to invest, he said. So either he is waiting for a little bit more of a drop before they come in, guns blazing, or he is playing this quite a bit. Now remember, Larry Fink sits on the board of Tesla, and they are very big into ESG, meaning environmental sustainability. It is a big, big topic on where BlackRock is going, or at least based on their, whether it's virtue signaling or the real juice over at BlackRock that says I want to invest in carbon footprint. But if that were the case, I think they would probably already start looking heavily into Bitcoin just because of its opportunity to really advance alternative energy, which is something I think a lot of people are overlooking of where that's going. I want to jump to BlackRock's invested in a sustainable future page. This is their information on where they kind of guide their investors, but one is the innovation on the road to net zero. And then this one right here, our 2121 investment stewardship properties. I want to jump to that real quick. This is a PDF that they make available that really goes into all of the areas that they have been. Let me zoom in on that just a little bit so you can kind of see where they're going. Climate and natural capital is really a big one. Company impacts on people and incentives live with value creation. I think all of these things flow into the cryptocurrency marketplace much more than what BlackRock, even themselves, it seems like they're setting themselves up for investing in cryptocurrency because of the fact that it starts to check all the boxes of where the future might be. So with all of that being said, the fact that we see El Salvador moving, we see things and companies like Twitter, Apple recently just said they're moving in on this, and then I'll talk a little bit about Amazon and what they're trying to do. But there's a lot of companies that are getting very antsy about this situation with Bitcoin and also just with cryptocurrency and DeFi projects in general that are really moving this in terms of strategic dominoes that are starting to play into the game. The IMF, though, is the one I'm worried about. Now, IMF is the International Monetary Federation and Fund, International Monetary Fund. Basically, they are a huge board. Let me zoom in on that for you. Fund said on Thursday that its economic and legal concerns regarding the move by El Salvador to make Bitcoin a parallel legal tender, further clouding the outlook for an IMF-backed program, big deal, and widening the spread on the company's current bonds. Now, there's some things playing into this, and I fear a couple of things, but I also think that there might be some plays here strategically from El Salvador that they may be playing themselves. And let me kind of talk about this for a second, but El Salvador has become the first country in the world to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender, with President Nayib Bukele, and touting its first use for the potential to help Salvadorans live on basically living abroad to send remittances back home. That's going to be a big deal. Adoption of Bitcoin legal tender require very careful analysis of Jerry Rice, an IMF spokesperson. The other thing that kind of gets me going right here is this statement right here. With El Salvador, whether El Salvador is going to be attractive for investors or is not going to be, depending on Bukele's ability to use his unquestionable political capital to bring large consolidated fiscal deficit into control. So there's a couple of things that are playing into this. One is El Salvador is and does have a problem with their deficit, but hey, I live in a country that have a huge problem with our deficit. We're constantly printing money. And the fact that El Salvador has said, wait a minute, maybe there's an alternative here from a digital standpoint that could help us correct our situation on the global stage. My concern is that there's a lot of countries that might be playing into the IMF and where this is going that could have an effect on loans to El Salvador. And that in itself could pressure El Salvador. And my question is, could it pressure them to back out of this scenario? There's one option. Yes, it could. The other option I see is that El Salvador could be positioning as a strong arm play. And if you study the president of El Salvador, this guy is a bit of a cagey political character, very smart, well-educated, and young-minded leader, global leader. And I think there's an opportunity here for El Salvador to make a stand and do something that is very rare, and that is to flip the table on where the global stage monetary funds are coming from and how they might be able to alternatively shift this. Can you imagine if Bitcoin goes to 100K this year, what El Salvador's situation is going to look like in terms of a deficit? Can you imagine that if the dollar went and tripled in value in less than a year, going from $1 to a $3 value in less than a year? That's the kind of opportunity that I think some of these countries are looking at, because it potentially is an accelerant. Now, could it also go down a little bit? Yeah, sure, it could. But the likelihood, with the fact that we have so many corporate entities, because remember, Twitter, Amazon, Apple, all of these companies are billion-dollar companies with billions and billions of dollars on their balance sheets. In other words, their treasury, just like MicroStrategies, or you look at Tesla and MicroStrategies are basically mice compared to these whales that we're talking about in Silicon Valley in terms of their available cash that they could be looking either one to transfer from the balance sheet, but even more so is the user base that Amazon, Apple, and Twitter have the resources to access. That in itself could be even bigger than institutional money coming into cryptocurrency. I think that's something that we have to watch very carefully. The interesting thing that I think, and the last point I want to make, is Jeff Bezos. Let's jump to this story real quick from Investor Place. Bezos and blockchain, what to know about the latest Amazon crypto news. Basically, he's got a job out that says they want to bolster its managed blockchain product, launched in 2019. The product allows Amazon users to create and manage their own private blockchains, notably with support of Ethereum. Again, this was also another thing that they did in terms of allowing AWS, users of AWS, to actually do mining. The company has only recently allowed users to mine crypto, as I said. Chia was one of them through its web services cloud. And this could be plans to build out a mining support with this coming DeFi expansion. So this is a big deal. If DeFi needs the facility to do basically cloud mining opportunities, this is a very interesting approach. And AWS in itself is a behemoth. And the ability for them from computing power alone is pretty massive. But the bigger concern and kind of interest I see from Amazon is the fact that they could be going into a branded product. Back to this. Maybe the DeFi interest will turn into an Amazon branded crypto product, kind of like the Facebook product that was trying to go with Libra, seeking to launch its own stablecoin as early as this year. The coin is seeing a fair bit of controversy from regulators. They're talking about Libra. or the Facebook stablecoin alike. However, the company is deep into development of and stern on its intention to unveil the product. So to me, this tells me that, first of all, Amazon and Facebook don't necessarily compete head to head, but they definitely compete in Silicon Valley for the best engineers, programmers, developers, all those kind of things that you would need to launch something like this. And Amazon is the biggest payment system in the world. And this is very, very interesting in the sense that we could see a cryptocurrency, whether it's a DeFi platform, moving into becoming something within Amazon itself, even if it was an Amazon-based, ETH, or DeFi project that could eventually become a coin and available for investment. There's a lot happening in the space. The point is that you've got the political world stage in play. You've got all of Silicon Valley in play. You've got China moving quickly to essentially dismantle mining, which is going to reposition miners in much cleaner environments. And now if you go down to El Salvador, they'll let you mine Bitcoin through the use of their volcanoes. So the point is that there's a lot of factors playing into what could really roll up this summer, because I think even though there has been a lot of FUD, don't get me wrong, there's been a lot of FUD here recently on Bitcoin and all of cryptocurrency in general. But these kinds of moves are much deeper, much more societal driven, and much more driven around economic futures than any of the things that are coming out from a FUD standpoint. And that's including Elizabeth Warren and what we could even see here in the US. The question will be, and it'll be interesting to see what Joe Biden does here on the global summit stage and how he represents the US in terms of digital currency in the future, because I'm sure cryptocurrency is going to come up. So all these things in mind, that's why I think Bitcoin has a great track to 100K by the year end. And so many people are pushing in that direction, barring some crazy, unusual scenario like we've had in the past 18 months. I don't necessarily think there's enough out there, but I do think there's enough opportunity now that's laying the groundwork. Now, granted, a lot of people could back out of this quickly. Jack could back out of this. Amazon and Bezos could say, it's just too volatile. Countries like El Salvador could get strong-armed from the IMF to essentially abandon. If they were to abandon, that would be a big hit on the cryptocurrency world stage. And I think the deniability is just now setting in, or the undeniability is just now setting in, both on the world stage and also at the governmental level. Meaning people realize the technology, blockchain tech, and especially DeFi is here, and it is the future of where we're going. So if you guys are listening in over on the podcast, make sure and stay tuned for more great content. We're going to have a lot of, really this summer is going to be, I feel like going to be DeFi summer, because we're going to be covering a lot of coins and a ton of projects. I just saw here recently, we're going to try to get Mike Arrington. You guys remember him. He is from TechCrunch. He was the founder of TechCrunch. He also launched a stage level investment group. And guess who he's backing on this next one? And that's Algorand. So that's big news breaking here recently. Another DeFi project that we've had here on the show. Check out those videos. The Algorand guys are really fascinating in what they're trying to do. Net negative climate impact as well for Algorand. So a lot of cool things happening in the space. Back to my point. Subscribe over on the podcast. And if you're here on YouTube, make sure and hit the like button right now. Subscribe to this show, because this is going to give you all kinds of great stuff. EV, AI, robotics, and more, as well as cryptocurrency on the breakdown. Hey, man, thanks for stopping in on TechPath today. My name is Paul Barron. Reach me out on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time, and stay tuned for more.